Hey, I'm Magic from OraclesElixir.com. Yesterday I put up a preview of the Misfits versus Splice quarterfinal, which is going to be happening tomorrow. I'll link that video in the description, but today I want to run through some win conditions for the other European quarterfinal matchup, H2K versus Fnatic. So let's start with the favorites in this series, the higher ranked team, that is H2K. The first thing I want to see from them is I want to see Pirali drafting to win, not drafting to learn, as he often did in the regular season. So what I mean by this is that often H2K would draft these compositions that had strengths in areas that H2K as a team and as players were kind of weaker. Specifically, they would draft kind of late game scaling compositions and team fighting, kind of 5v5 compositions. They would do this in some games because team fighting has been a weakness of H2K, not only this split, but historically. So it was pretty clear that they were trying to practice something they weren't very good at and trying to get better and shore up a weakness, give themselves more flexibility and diversity. But this is the playoffs. This is not time to practice and develop. It's time to win. So I want to see H2K drafting for the early game, drafting junglers who can gank a lot, as Jankos likes to do, and just, play to their own best win conditions, not play to grow and expand themselves. And, the time for that is over. And I don't think they developed enough in the team fighting late game kind of stuff to justify pushing themselves in that direction. I think they need to focus in on what works best for them. As just some evidence to support the fact that H2K were this really early game team, although nobody should be questioning that at this point. H2K led Europe in first blood rate, 63%. First to kill 3 towers, 77%. The first overall dragon control, which is based a lot on being in charge of the game and having control of the map. They had 77% of all dragons. But the late game was an issue for them. 43% Elder Dragon control. They took less than half of the Elder Dragons, even though they took more than 3/4 of the Elemental Drakes. So this is something where I really want to see them avoid going into the late game as much as possible. I want to see them win early, snowball hard, and play to that win condition with their mid-game macro and all of that. Don't worry about developing extra diversity and flexibility and all those things. If you win the split and go to MSI, then you'll have, worry about flexibility and stuff for that with your boot camping for that event. For these playoffs, play what's going to win. Next thing I want to see them crush the top side of the map. Soaz is pretty exploitable on Fnatic. I think he's one of their weaker links. Broxa is much less consistent in the jungle than Jankos. So I want to see that 2v2 especially really be somewhere where H2K focuses in. Win the top lane matchup in lane and with jungle influence, snowball through that part of the map and use that to influence the rest of the game. Shen is probably going to be permabanned this series because that's one of the champions that Soaz has been able to have the most influence on, one of the ones he's played a lot. And Odoamne is also a very good Shen, so I think that's going to be permabanned. I think we're going to see Rumble off the table almost all the time. Nautilus will probably banned a lot as well. I think just in general, top lane is going to get a lot of bans because that's going to allow H2K to exploit Soaz a bit more. So that's something that I think H2K can also do to win. I want to highlight a player to watch for H2K. I'm going to say Febiven is going to be a really important player to watch. His laning is going to be really key because if he can keep mid lane under control, which I think he will have the advantage in that head-to-head with Caps, not only could it deny Caps the chance to snowball himself and be the damage carry that he likes to be, there's also potential to tilt Caps since he's a rookie. He might be a little more prone to getting frustrated. We've seen recently that Caps can get frustrated and sometimes make plays that don't make a lot of sense because he's trying to force himself back into the game. So if Febiven can control that mid lane matchup, not only will it help to shut down Caps, it'll also give him chances to go up and help with that topside matchup, joining Jankos for tower dives and invades and controlling vision and all of these things. So moving on to Fnatic. I want to see them get some firsts. So I'm talking about first blood, first tower, first baron, these kinds of things. Fnatic won 70% of the time when they got first blood. They only won 19% of the time when they gave up first blood. They won 65% of the time when getting first tower, only won 32% of the time when not getting first tower. And first baron was 85% win rate when they got the first baron, 19% when they didn't. So all of these things, getting the firsts on all of these is going to be hugely important. Not just because it's good for them, I mean it's good for everybody in general, but also because they're up against H2K who are likely to be playing this early game control, snowballing kind of approach. So if Fnatic can get some of the firsts for themselves, that's going to help to stabilize that early game, shut down one of H2K's win conditions, and get into the late game, which is where Fnatic may be on more even footing. I also want to see them track Jankos really well, because Jankos is this PvP jungler. He likes to gank a lot rather than farm up and, you know, kind of turn himself into a damage carry. He likes to gank a lot, get into the lanes. He'll probably going after the solo lanes quite a bit, but he'll gank bot as well. So in general, Fnatic need to keep wards on Jankos as much as possible, play defensively in the lanes. This is going to be up to Broxa and Jess's mostly as the two kind of most important warding roles, but especially early game warding is very much a team effort. So I want to see the river with a lot of Fnatic wards in it. I want to see Jankos not being able to surprise anyone with the way he paths into the lanes. And if Fnatic can do that, it's going to go a really long way. I also want to see Caps kind of win some of his coin flips. And so I kind of referred to this before, where he, you know, he's potentially a bit of a volatile player, might be able to get frustrated. If he can win some of his risky plays, especially early, if he can kind of win some of the laning phases, get some plays that go his way, you know, with some of these riskier things that he might want to do. And if he can take a risk, win that coin flip, and come out ahead with an advantage, that's going to go a really, really long way for Fnatic. Because he's had, in the last couple of weeks, I've noticed more of his kind of classic creative flanks, if you want to call it that, his kind of creative all-ins, trying to force a play, trying to dive into, you know, go 1v3 and assassinate somebody, do these kinds of things, or find himself in a weird position flanking a team fight. This is something that when I was scouting him before the start of the season, I pointed out about him, and you know, that he would have these very aggressive moments of positioning or movement where he's trying to create something really big and really flashy, and if it works, it looks great. But if it doesn't work, which it has a high chance not to work, then it makes him look bad, and having gold lead is a big part of making those work or not. So if he needs to win some coin flips, especially early on, get himself strong so that his more aggressive, creative playmaking can actually work and succeed. If that can happen, this is going to be really big for Fnatic. For the player to watch for Fnatic, I want to highlight Reckless. He's an MVP candidate in my mind. He's been super reliable. He seems like the emotional core of the team. If he can anchor the team and have, you know, help Caps stay stable and be effective that way, if Soaz can kind of come into the bottom lane and help, if he does get on the Shen or make some other good teleport plays, I think a lot of it's going to center around Reckless and his ability to be the one who is always, you know, always succeeding in his role, always doing his job, not making big mistakes, not giving up unnecessary deaths. And Reckless, I think, is going to be really core to Fnatic's success in this series. In terms of a prediction, I think there shouldn't be much of a surprise here. I'm going to call H2K. They really shouldn't lose this series as long as they draft cleanly, set up their own preferred way of playing. But players like Caps and also Broxa, definitely capable of surprising if they can get a snowball started, if they can get a couple of coin flips to go their way. So I think there's potential for a lot of excitement in this series, especially if H2K do try to expand themselves and play multiple different kinds of compositions. So the playoff stats will be up to date on oracle.elixir.com as all this plays out. Keep checking back there for information and analysis over the next few weeks. And don't forget to leave a comment and subscribe if you enjoy the videos.